Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We're going to just give 5 minutes for others to join, so ask for your patience. Thank you. So we're now at 30. So we'll start in another 2 minutes. Okay, so good morning again, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. My name is Sandra Jones, and I'm head of marketing for Fujitsu, Caribbean and Latin America. So welcome to our webinar today on driving business intelligence with Microsoft Power BI. And joining me today, we have Chanel Bovell to my left and Anthony McGregor to my right. Pre-COVID Anthony is to the right of me. So, so before we get started, I'd just like to take care of some housekeeping. So the session is being recorded. All attendees are in listen-only mode, and that is to ensure that we have a very smooth flow and it runs efficient. And in addition to that, you will be able to ask your questions using the question pane in GoToWebinar. However, we'll take your questions at the end of the session. If we do not get to your questions during today's session, we will reach out to you to address your specific questions. So you do have the opportunity again to ask your questions using the question pane at any time throughout the webinar, but we will not get to the questions until the end of the webinar. And that is to ensure that we know that it is, you have a lot of choices, and we want to make sure that we give you as much information as possible. So the topic of today's webinar is Drive Business Intelligence with Microsoft Power BI. And we all know that data is the new currency. And today's webinar is going to show you how you can leverage Power BI to make data-driven insights. So without much further ado, I'd like to hand over to Anthony McGregor, our Head of Application Services, and Anthony will just provide some context setting before we go to Chanel. So over to you, Anthony.
Thank you very much, Sandy, and morning to everyone out there. So Yes, today our topic will be around driving business intelligence through Power BI, but there are four key things that I want to will make sure resonates with you by the end of our webinar today. And the first thing is how your information asset can advise your business, right? And as we go through the presentation today, these are the items that we're going to be addressing. So, I mean, while you're jotting down your questions, these are things that I just want you to highlight to just ensure that we have answered all of these questions for you. So, of course, how the information asset would advise your business decisions. Secondly, how you can actually leverage your information asset to modernize your data-driven services, right? Whether internally or externally, right? How the decisions made from these assets can transform your operation, whether through efficiency, cost savings, or even profits. And then, of course, finally, how the insight from this information or from your information assets, whether internally or externally, can improve the way you manage your people, your processes, and your technology. So these are the key things that we are hoping you can derive from the webinar today. So I'm going to actually hand over to Chanel, and she's actually going to go through from the capturing of data straight down to that intelligent analytics. And I'm gonna let her do her thing, and hopefully you enjoy our presentation and can benefit from what it is we have to share today. All right, Chanel, over to you.
Thanks, Anthony. Hi, everyone. Hello from Fujitsu, Caribbean, Trinidad. What I want to go through today is I want to go through how we could use Power BI to bring in multiple data sources, especially data that is unstructured and data that has different data formats. And then we want to take a look at how could we secure our reports in a way that only authorized persons could be able to view our reports. So let's go. Of course, today I'm going to be using Microsoft Power BI, but before I move to that, I just want to show you an example of how unstructured our data could really be. And I've been working with Power BI since its inception. I believe its birthday was July the 24th, so this is its fifth birthday. And I've been working with this tool since then. And I just want to show you some of the frustrations that I had as a Power BI developer. So let me take you over to summary life data. All right, so let's say, for example, you own a supermarket and you have an Excel sheet of data. So a lot of us are familiar with this format, and we know that usually when we are creating that reports, that we would probably create a graph and a chart in this report. But then let's throw some more information on top of this. Let's say, for example, the HR department has data, but the HR department data is in SQL Server. And the format of this data is a little bit is similar, so we could still work with it together in Excel. But then we want to see what our data would look like if we join it together with, let's say, some economic indicators. So let's say we want to understand how are our sales how do our sales compare to, let's say, the price of natural gas, especially in Trinidad, where we know this is one of the key economic indicators? And then, just for fun, let's throw in some JSON inside of here. And you'll notice that each one of these data formats are vastly different. And then again, we have to add one more factor, and this is the fact that we live in a pandemic, that we are living through a pandemic. And because we are living through this pandemic, we might want to know, oh my God, I have suppliers from different countries. Which ones of my suppliers, where are my products coming from, and what are the COVID cases from my supplier countries? Oh, and let me not forget, I have some data in SharePoint as well. So you see, we have all these different data sources from all different locations, one coming from a website, one coming from SharePoint. Then we have some data in JSON, we have a CSV file, we have our SQL Server database, and lest we not forget, we have our Excel table. So at this point in time, I want to head over to Power BI and show you how we could marry these 6 different data sources into one report. Let's go. So I'm going to open up my Power BI report now. And I hope you guys are excited because I'm actually gonna give you guys a chance to interact with this report later down. I don't want to give you access now because you might play around with the report and not listen. But yeah, so I'll give you guys the ability to interact with this report a little bit later in the session. So here I have my sales dashboard. But behind my sales dashboard, I want to show you how I was able to bring in this data from these 6 data sources. So let's go into where I would transform my data, which is part of the ETL process, extract, transform, load. We want to be able to extract data from each data source, transform it into a format that is compatible with each other, and then load it to an area that, is palatable to our tastes. So for example, you let me go to my orders table, which came from Excel, and you'd see that for each stage of the ETL process, I'm able to, let's say, change column types, remove columns that I don't want to have, replace values that I don't want to show in my reports. So I'm able to relatively easily clean up my Excel sheet, right? And then one of the key things, a lot of you who work with different data types, you'll know that the date field may change. So some date fields may be month, day, year, some date fields may be day, month, year. So within Power BI, I was able to transform my date field where each one of my data sources will have the same date field. Let's take a look at another data source. So for example, my products, this was from a JSON file. You'll notice now that it's now in a table where I could read data from my table. And one of the most interesting parts about Power BI is the ability to pull from a website. So this data here, I do not have this data anywhere on my computer. What this means for you is that you don't have to store that data on your computer. You could pull that data directly from the web, and this will give you live updates, especially for something when it pertains to the coronavirus. So now that you guys are able to see that I was able to pull in my 6 data sources and clean them up in a manner where, I could work with them together. Basically, we'll be building our data set. Let's close and apply. And now that I have all my data in one data set, let's take a look at some of the possibilities. All right. So I was now able to take this stack of data from multiple data sources, and I'm now able to process it in a way that I would have my live dashboards and alerts. The value in this is that I have all these data sources, and I think someone told me once that Power BI is a great tool for making a visual Pilau, which is if HR has data, otherwise known as the chicken, and then the sales team has data, which is the rice, and then another team has peas, we could now bring all those data sources to create one pot, which will be beneficial to everyone, right? So good. So what you were able to see is that I was able to take my different data sources, Excel, SQL Server, CSV, JSON, web, and the SharePoint list, and I was able to clean up my data in a way where I could now build something, right? Now let's take a look at, after we clean up our data, what are some of the looks and visualizations that we could have in our report that will bring value to you when you want to make a holistic decision. So this is an example of a Power BI report, but I'm not a fan of PowerPoint presentations, so I'm going to switch back over to my Power BI report. All right. So in my Power BI report, I'm able to see, let me just make this a little bit bigger for you guys. All right. I'm able to see total sales profit and profit ratio, and I could drill down into my data. So for each and every segment of my sales, I'm able now to say, okay, let me select phones. I'm noticing that the largest sales of phones and profit is in Barbados. So maybe I could inject some more investment into that country, or I could see that my lowest selling product is furnishings. but the country with the most sales for furnishings, oh my God, is Barbados again. I don't know what Barbados is doing, but they're doing something good, right? So my furnishings, the highest sales again is in Barbados. So that really gives us some insight into the economic, into the sales capabilities of this country, so we could probably invest more money in that country, right? Another view that I want to show you guys is the ability to connect your data to a map, so we could visualize across the Caribbean what are our sales and what are our profits. And one of the things I love is that a lot of map software, you don't really get to see the data by the Caribbean, but in Power BI, it gives us a really good landscape of um, the Caribbean and not just little dots. We actually see the country. The good thing is that if you have longitudinal and latitudinal data, you could actually drill down by country, by city. So that's really powerful. All right. Now here's where it gets interesting. So earlier I showed you that I had some stock data, right? So I had some stock data. This I would have downloaded from my stock website. And this data, this is open data to the public. And I may have Wayne Enterprises here, but this data is open to the public. So if I want to take data from my data set and compare it to my public data, then I could also do that. So let me show you what that would look like within Power BI. Right? So I'm able to see here my sales and my profits against my average closing quote. So I could see that there's definitely a correlation between my stock price and my sales in my data. Or if I want to look at it from another angle, how are my sales and my profits against the natural gas price of the country? So you'll see here that let me make this a little bit bigger. You'll see here that I'm able to trend my profits against the natural gas price of the country. And I'll see at this point in time here, which is November 2019, the gas price went down, but my profit still went up. So maybe there was an incident here that allowed our business to disassociate itself from being tied to the natural gas price. And insights like this are very powerful when you want to either one, diversify your portfolio, or two, make investments in other areas, right? Now, let's say you're tired of line charts and graphs and bar charts, and you want to see data in a different light. Using Power BI, one of the things that we could do is we could drill down by very specific categories. So in this case, I'm using profit again. So I'm seeing that my profit is comprised of consumer sales, corporate sales, and home office sales. Now let's take a look at where my consumer profits are coming from. It's coming from technology. And then I could further drill down to see, okay, well, the leading country for my technology sales here is Barbados. But let's take a look at Antigua and Barbuda because they're not doing so well. Machines in Barbuda, Antigua and Bermuda are not very good. So maybe one of the decisions that I could make from this data is to end my product line for machines in Antigua and Barbuda. And by switching over the investments I have from Antigua and Barbuda machines, I could probably pump more investments into accessories in Barbados. So this is just a simple case of we have our data visualized in such a way that will help us to make decisions. This chart, I have a close connection to this chart because it really shows how we're pulling data from multiple data sources. So basically what this map is showing me is data from my JSON file, which is this. So I have from my suppliers, I have phones, and my Me Too phone comes from my main supplier is Japan. And then I have tables and appliances that come from standards, envelopes that come from paper mats. But if I want to be very health and safety conscious and I want to know, well, are my goods coming from countries that have very high active COVID cases? So what I did is I took the data from this JSON file, which holds my supplier data, and then I tied it together with the coronavirus live update site, which you could see here. All right, so I took this table directly from the website. Once this is refreshed, it will refresh every day. And I took a look of my list of suppliers, what are the active cases of coronavirus in my supply chain. So I'll see that my Me Too phones that comes from Japan, they have 7,393 active cases. Whereas if I drill down to the Caribbean, I have two suppliers in Trinidad and Tobago. One is Quartz and the other is Standards. And of these two suppliers, I could see that there are only 20 active cases. So maybe I need to be a little bit careful in my product assembly line when I bring in goods from these suppliers, to basically spray down with some Lysol or a little beep, the cheaper version of Lysol. And this is basically to show that I took data from two public data sources. Well, from one public data source and from my data source being a JSON file. And I tied it together in a way where I could understand, what are the health concerns of the countries that I'm importing goods from. Right? Another way how we were able to tie in data from our data sources to kind of help you get a more holistic profile of your business is that we have our SQL Server database here with some HR data. And this is in no way tied to sales whatsoever. But because we have the company that persons come from, so I have their company, we could basically track, let's see what kind of data we could get from this. So in this, let me zoom in a little bit. I'm able to see, okay, I have a total sales of 9.4 million, profits, etc. But I'm noticing that for Bees Energy, which is one of my companies, Bees Energy takes more vacation hours than Wayne Enterprises. So is it that they have more staff? But then again, this is an average. So the average vacation hours that we have in Bees Energy is much higher than that of Wayne Enterprises, yet still they have more sales and more profits. So what does this tell me? Is there some kind of correlation between, making employees happy and sales? I don't know. And these are the kind of questions that you could ask yourself by combining data from multiple data sets to create a much bigger picture in Power BI. All right. So you really get to see how the multiple data sets work together to create the big picture. And I know some of you are out there saying, Chanel, I like the graphs and the charts and all these things, but I'm a simple person. I still like my normal tabular reports, otherwise known as paginated reports, right? So you could still get you still have the ability to create those tabular based reports in Power BI or in a or you could connect Power BI to your SQL or your Power BI report builder, which gives you the ability to create these tabular types of reports. I know that actuaries might be more interested in this kind of data than the visual data, but the good thing is the option is still there for you. All right. And when you have all your data in one data source, the good thing is that we could now create a data story. So let's take a look at some of the tools that we have in Power BI that uses artificial intelligence to help us build our data story or to help us get a much bigger point of view. All right, so I'm going to go back over to my report and I'm going to go to one of my reports called Q&A. And this I really like because what the Q&A feature allows you to do is, let's say, for example, you have this report and you have a bunch of graphs and charts and tables, but there's a piece of information that you're not seeing and you don't want to contact IT or you don't want to contact the report builder to come in and build this graph for you. You want to directly interact with your report to ask questions. So let's do that. Let's ask our report some questions. Now, one of the reports that I did not build is I specifically did not build profit by let's take a look at profit by country. So what is my profit by country. So you'll see here that Power BI was able to intelligently detect what my question meant. So it was able to identify that by profit I meant, my formula for profit, and it was able to determine what I meant by country. But let's take another look of this data. So let's say I want to see by country, by store. So what it did is it broke down the data for me. So I'm able to see by country in Barbados. So I have 2 stores in Barbados. And in Barbados, I have Chanel's Biscuits. And I also have Wayne Enterprises. And I'm able to see by country, by store, which one of my companies produces more profit. But then let's say someone doesn't know to use the word store. The amazing thing, and this is where I'm really impressed by some of the capabilities by Power BI. So the word I just used was what is my profit by country by store, but what if someone says company instead? You see, so it was able to detect that the word store is a synonym for the word company. So even if you are interacting your reports and Mary is using a different language than John, they are both able to render the similar data based on the questions that they ask. But let's ask some more random questions. Let's make it kind of random. So let's say I want to see active cases in Trinidad and Tobago. Right? And when I ask this question, what my data gives me is it gives me 3 options. So I'm seeing active cases in Trinidad and Tobago with product country. So what this first line is showing me is, hey, do you want to see Trinidad and Tobago, one of the countries that you buy products from? Yeah, I want to see that. So let's look at this data. And I'm seeing that 20 active cases in Trinidad and Tobago. So in a way, I'm querying my data about something that is related to basically this dashboard is for sales and profits, but I'm still able to ask questions of a data set that is in the web. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys are blown away by that, but I was certainly blown away by the fact that I was able to query data from the web without even having this data set anywhere on my computer. Right? Let's look at another type of question here in this case. So I want to look at sales versus profits by year. Yeah, so we'll get a trend line. Now, why I'm asking these different types of questions is you'll notice that the more I ask questions, and by asking different types of questions, Power BI is intelligently giving me different types of reports. All that to say is that it's smart enough to know that this type of chart, when I use year, would enable the time intelligence side of Power BI to know to give me a line and a line graph. So this is just something that I personally love as a feature in Power BI. It gives you, the user who is not technical, who probably might not know that much information about the data set, to query your data in a way using natural language. All right, so these are one of the artificial intelligence tools that was built into Power BI that really makes it stand out above other reporting software. All right, another artificial intelligence thing that they kind of jammed into Power BI is that we have the ability to view segments in our data. So let's take a look at that. So for this one, I'm going to open another report. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Hold on a second. All right. So let me open up a new page, and I want to create a new visualization. And this is the key influencers. What the key influencers helps us to do is zero in on our segments within our data. All right, so let's take a look. So this is the key influencers chart. Let's go to fields. Let's go to orders. And I want to analyze, let me see, was a good one. I want to analyze total sales. And I want to analyze total sales by, let's say, segment. All right. And the good thing is I could drag multiple sets of data into my segments to see what kind of data that I can get. One of the features of the key influencers is that I'm able to analyze by increase segments or by decrease segments. All right. Oh, I think my machine is sticking a little bit. All right. So the key influencers allows us to look at segments within our data. So in my presentation, you'll notice that I have, in another report, I would have what segments I have within my suppliers, what segments I have within my trainers, etc. All right, and another cool feature that Power BI gives us the ability to do is it gives us the ability to forecast. Now, forecasting is something that would resonate probably with the finance people among us. So let's take a look at the forecasting abilities. So for this one, I want to open my stock report. Yeah, so I have my trend lines and I have my maximum values, my minimum values. But you'll notice here that I also have my forecast for the next 12 months. And with any forecast, you will have an upper bound and a lower bound. And what this helps me to do is I could drill down by company. So let me select source doubles here. I could see that source doubles has a high projection, has an increasing projection for the next 12 months. Let me look at Wayne Enterprises, whereas Wayne Enterprises has a steady projection. So with this, it could help me, the business decision maker, determine, maybe we could make more investments in source doubles because clearly they have a higher projection of their closing quote on the stock market than Wayne Enterprises does. So this is just some of the tools that's built in. You don't have to do a lot of, you don't have to edit these reports a lot. You don't have to be a data scientist. These things come built into Power BI. So what we were able to do is we were able to take 6 data sources, combine that with the power of artificial intelligence with Power BI and the ability to forecast. And we were able to take all our little Lego bricks to create this one massive story. I'm a fan of Legos, by the way. I don't know if you guys picked up on it. But yeah. So now I want to kind of look at what are some of the Power BI deployment options that you have within the suite. And the argument here, well, not really argument, but the options here come down to 2 major choices, and that is Power BI Pro or Power BI Premium. Now, they both have their advantages. What I like about Pro is like if you have a smaller company, you could buy a Pro license for the different users. And by small, I would say if you have only 10 persons creating reports, and only 10 persons viewing reports, you might want to go with Power BI Pro. And Power BI Premium, it's not licensed per user, it's licensed for the entire company. So once you buy Power BI Premium for your company, then each and every single user could access a report within your company once they are on your local network. So one of the things that you get with Power BI Premium is you get the ability to create reports on your local network using Power BI Report Server. So this is an example. You know what? Let's head back over to the live demo. All right. So I just want to show you guys the key differences between Power BI Pro, which helps you to publish online, and Power BI Premium. So let's just take a look at that for a second. So here, what you are seeing, this is Power BI Pro. Nothing fancy. You're able to drill down in your reports. You're able to look at your data. Now let's head across the Power BI Report Server. Where's my report server? Yeah, good. So let's head over to our Power BI report server. Now, report server, as I mentioned, it comes with Power BI Premium, and it rests on your local infrastructure. So if you are worried about publishing data to Power BI online, you could probably look at the route of going with Power BI report server, and you'll notice that the interface is more or less the same. You have the same options with Power BI report server as you would with Power BI Pro. All right, the key difference here is that an employee would go to the URL in your company, and here they can access reports. All right. So just some key things to note when, well, hopefully I've convinced you to the Power BI route. Some options to consider in your deployment summary, in your deployment strategy, is you could either go with Power BI Pro for smaller users, or you could go with Power BI Premium, which gives you Power BI report server that allows you to host your reports on premise and is accessible via web link. Or for the developers amongst us, you could use Power BI Embedded, which allows us to build, let's say you're building an app for a company, you could embed Power BI reports in your applications. And for those of you who are wondering, Chanel, how do you choose? My company has 500 users. Some might be building reports, some might not. There's a really good tool that you could use within the Power BI community called the calculator. I'll bring it up now. And this helps you calculate, okay, if I have 10 users, if I have 20 users, if I have 5,000 users, which deployment strategy should I use? So this really helps you to calculate, which one of the two options that you would have within Power BI. I'll bring the link up again so you could see it. It's called, you could go to powerbi.microsoft.com/en-us-calculator, right? Now, another thing that, I'm not gonna demo too heavily because it's a concept that is still very new to a lot of Power BI users. The idea is that, let's say you have several different data sources, but you don't want to combine those data sources in Power BI itself. You want to combine it in the cloud and then have Power BI connect to that. That concept is called Power BI data flows. The advantage of Power BI data flows is that you are doing your ETL process in the cloud. So you are using the compute power of the cloud to clean your data and to basically transform your data, where Power BI report designers could easily connect it. So in a way, what you're doing is you're just automating your entire ETL process, right? When you're building a data flow, basically what you would do is you would go into the Power BI online or your Power BI Premium, and you would notice that you would see data flows here. For some of you who do use Power BI already, you might notice data flows when you go to Power BI online. This basically allows you to set up an automation workflow to connect to several data sources to pull it into one data set, right? And the part that I'm most excited about sharing with you today is, let's say, for example, you want to integrate Power BI with Microsoft Teams, or you want to alert your team when a report is refreshed, or all these different things. Let's take a look at how this would work. So the good thing is that because Power BI is a Microsoft product, it works with other Microsoft products. It creates like a really beautiful ecosystem. So we have Power BI and Power Automate working together. These are just some of the workflows that you can use. And again, Chanel, why are you telling me this? Why is this important? Well, basically, the things that you can do with Power Automate and Power BI is you could automatically refresh data sets if you are not using data flows. You could alert your team members. You could integrate it with Microsoft Teams. So Power BI moves from being a decision-making tool now to a collaborative tool, right? So I just want to show you a simple flow that I would have created for you guys as my little gift to you. So let me head back over to my computer. Well, out of the Excel, right? And basically, what this flow does, this was the highlight of my day, by the way. So what this flow does is, let's say I have a SharePoint list and a SharePoint document library. By the way, SharePoint is also awesome. All right, so let's say I have the SharePoint document library, and in this document library, every month I would upload a document to this document library, but I have a report that pulls from this document library. So does that mean that every time I upload a file, I now have to go and edit the report? No, no, no. So what I can do is I could create a flow that anytime this file is uploaded to the SharePoint library, it's going to update my Power BI report for me automatically. Yeah? And then what's going to happen is it's going to alert my team to say, hey guys, I uploaded this report, you all could now view it. So let's actually take a look at this workflow in real life. So let me get my file. So I'm going to drag this into this library. And what's going to happen now is that Microsoft Flow is going to kick off a flow to refresh my data set. So let me just give it a second. Right, data workflows usually take about a minute to 2 minutes to complete. But what's going to happen is that these 3 Excel files are now going to be cleansed automatically in Power BI, and it's going to automatically update a report. So let me go to my report and see if it was updated. All right, so this is my report right here. All right, it hasn't updated as yet. I'll probably give it another minute or so, but I really want to drive home the point that at no point in time I am editing this report. I have a standard template of Excel files that are uploaded to my SharePoint library. And it doesn't have to be SharePoint, it could be like a library on your file server. And that data set is automatically refreshed without me having to go into my report at any point in time. So once that ETL process is complete, the only thing now to do is to go in and basically view the reports. So let's refresh this data set and see. Give it another second or so. Right. So let me Control R, refresh my page. Now instead of 2 companies, what I should see is I should see 3, because again, I uploaded 3 files. Great. So now you'll see that I have Source Double, Chanel's Biscuits, and Wayne Enterprises. And this is a complete transformation process from simply just uploading a file to SharePoint, and then the Power BI report is automatically updated. And now when I go to my forecast, which I would have shown you earlier, I could now see forecasts for each one of the companies without touching the report once. Yeah? I can't hear you and I can't see you, but this stuff makes me really excited because the user who is creating the report only needs to create the report and then forget about it. They don't need to look at the report again because the workflows in the background are doing the work for me.
Yeah. So Chanel, what you were able to show us today was really around the 4 points that I would have made to start us off, right? About information assets and how it advises the decisions, how we can leverage it to modernize, how the decisions from it can actually help us in transforming the organization, and of course, how the insights can help us make better decisions moving forward. So I would like to thank you so much for your it was interactive. Believe it or not, I could see the audience actually very interested and looking to put a whole set of questions in the question and answer box. So I'm gonna hand it over now to Sandy. And Sandy, you can then take it from there. Yeah.
Oh, wait, one more thing. There's one more gift I want to share with the audience, yeah? I know we are almost close to the end of the session, but the last thing I want to kind of point out, Anthony, and to everyone here, is that once I upload my reports, I could apply sensitivity labels to my reports to ensure that, let's say, if someone wants to export data from those reports, they have to have permissions to do it. So you could control security at the report level by who you share it to. And you could even control the security for each and every individual part of your report when exporting different parts of your reports. So on the screen, you'll notice that I applied my sensitivity label. Once I applied my sensitivity label, I go into my report and I try to export a section. Once I export that section, you could see that there's some sensitivity labels applied to the data that I exported. Yeah. And the same goes with, you could even block exports from your report. So in this example, I said, you know what? I just want you to review the report. I don't want you to export any kind of data from the report. So I'm able to block exports from there as well. Yep.
Thank you very much, Chanel.
You're welcome.
All right. Sandy?
All right, thanks, Chanel. Thanks, Anthony. So we now come to the end of our questions, and we're just gonna put up a quick poll just before we get to your questions, and we'd be grateful if you could just take a minute to answer the question. It is very important that we hear from you because this helps us to improve our webinars. Okay. Okay. So remember, you can ask your questions using the question pane in GoToWebinar. So the first question that we have is, do you need a license to create Power BI reports? So I'll ask Chanel to take that question.
Okay, sure, no problem. So the good thing about Power BI is that if you want to start creating reports, you could do so by just downloading the Power BI desktop report builder. It is free. You don't have to pay for it. Where the cost would come in is that if you want to publish to powerbi.com, which is the online service, or if you want to have your report builder for your organization, that's where the licenses come in. So to create reports, no cost. But once you publish to like powerbi.com, or if you're publishing to Power BI report server, that's where you might need to start to look into licensing.
Okay, another question that we have is, can you brand your reports?
Oh, yes, definitely. So one of the things that I love is that if you have your company brand colors, you could brand it. However, you could use your same hexadecimal colors and brand your Power BI report. So there was one I was working on fairly recently. I would have cleaned up the data so that you guys would So this company, their brand colors were navy blue and green. So I was able to incorporate their brand colors, and they could now use this report template for every other report that they build. So yes, you can use your brand colors when building reports. It's very easy to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Is my
Thank you.
screen still being shared? Were you able to see that report? No?
Okay, so we do have a question, another question, and it is,
Mhm.
do you have webinars for actually generating reports?
Oh,
I guess
webinars for actually generating report.
no, so we haven't had one as yet, but if it's something that you are interested in, just send that over, and once we are able to get audience to listen, or maybe you can contact us directly, and maybe we can do
We can
walk.
schedule a one-to-one.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, we give another minute or two for any more questions. Okay, at this time, we have no further questions. We want to thank you again for your time. We hope you found the information informative. And as I said before, the session is being recorded and all registered participants will receive a recording. And therefore, if you have any more questions when you have a chance to view the recording, once again, feel free to reach out to us. We're very grateful for your time. And if you are interested in a follow-up after this webinar, if you could just indicate so in the quick poll that's now on your screen. Okay. Okay, so thank you very much. Really grateful for your time. We know that you do have options, and so we look forward to hosting you again in another webinar. Please be safe and enjoy your summer. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.